With me today is author and teacher Charlotte Safieh. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Charlotte, you're a teacher and an author, right?
Mm-hmm.
So teacher and author.
Yeah.
Which do you prefer to be addressed as?
I would say teacher first, because I really love teaching, so much that I don't have a lot of time left for writing my own writing. So
you have a book out. We're going to talk about that later, but it's a children's book, right? Spoiler alert, right? But we'll get to that later. So let's go back to the beginning of your story, though. You went to Teachers College roughly 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Is that right, roughly?
Yeah.
So as I understand the story, when you graduate, and it's a common story that opportunities are somewhat limited. So you're kind of looking for work. So tell me about that time in your life.
Yeah. While I was doing my teaching practice in the classroom that I was working, the teacher had got her students all to write their own story, and they'd made it into a book, and it was pretty basic. It was just paper stapled together. They'd made a cover. And I loved this project. I just fell in love with what the kids had done, and I got really involved with this project. So I knew I had to volunteer, and I was like, I know what I want to volunteer doing. I want to do creative writing in the classroom as a volunteer. And I ended up doing that, first of all, with my daughter's class, and then I went back to the school where I did my teaching practice, and I did it in a few other schools as well that I kind of got introductions to. One time I did it through an Indigo grant, and it was such a joy. It was to go into classrooms and get the students to write stories.
So even today you specialize in teaching children creative writing.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I do for my job.
So what age range do you do?
It's mostly grade 4 and up. I go all the way up to grade 12. And the department I work with is for newcomers. So I do it as a newcomer program. So I work a lot in ESL classrooms. And they write stories, and usually fiction, but sometimes they decide they want to write their story. And then recently I've been doing poetry as well, which has been really fun.
So from the school board or your employer's point of view, you're encouraging literacy, are you? Or is it part of the English program, or how do they think of it?
The focus is on wellness and integration. So it's settling them in to Canadian culture. It's kind of like a settlement program in the classroom, but it's also giving them a voice, making them more confident. It helps with their literacy. I've had teachers say it's really boosted their literacy in the ESL program, and they've been able to graduate more quickly because of the experience of writing.
So how do you teach children how to write or be creative writers?
I create a space for them. I don't think you can teach somebody to write a story. I think you can create a safe, welcoming space for them to feel safe enough that they can come up with a story. I spend a lot of time building the culture in the classroom, making them feel like they can engage with their imagination.
So there are no bad ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've got this. I call it radical encouragement. I don't criticize their work at the beginning at all. I only look for what's good in their work, so that they gradually build that confidence in their writing, and they feel like they can write, and they start to believe in themselves. And it's a big thing, is confidence. But I do teach skills. I teach them how to describe settings using their senses. We create characters together and think about all the different aspects of characters. We talk about plot, how the plot has an arc to it and building up. And so we talk about the traditional elements of a story. But for me, the focus is about creating a space where they feel like they can be creative and they can make things up, and it is not going to be judged. That's really important for me.
So what made you, I know you now write yourself as well. So you're teaching writing, but you're not writing. What happened to make you want to write a little bit more for yourself?
Well, way back, I did a couple of creative writing courses before I moved to Canada when my kids were really young, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. And then when I started doing more teaching creative writing, I was like, hang on, I need to be better at this. I need to do some of my own studying. So I joined some courses at University of Toronto Continuing Ed and did some basic story writing programs and creative writing to get more knowledge so that I felt like I'd know better what I was teaching. And I kept doing it because I love learning. I really like doing courses, and I was doing short stories, children's stories. I did a children's picture book story course, did some poetry, and really enjoyed them all. So, I just felt like I had more experience and more knowledge. And it was through one of those courses that this idea for The Cry for the Ocean came up. It was a course called Generating Stories.
So, and that's your book that's out. It's been out a couple years, I think, right? Or is it fairly more recent than that?
It was summer 2019, I think. Okay. I published it.
What's A Cry for the Ocean about?
It's about plastic pollution. It's about caring for the environment. It is a story. It's a story about a girl called Sukara. And it's a story that I wrote for the classroom. I wrote it thinking that it will educate kids to care more about the planet. But it's been quite interesting because I've had quite a lot of parents and teachers read it and go, "Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting." It's a book for learning. And I think the key message in the story is that we have to care. We have to care enough to make a difference.
So the question every creative person knows is coming, but they don't really like. The question is, where did you get the idea for it?
Well, it started as an adult short story about the plastic islands, the plastic ocean. I read about it a long time ago, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. This is floating around in the ocean. I should write about this. And I had some kind of idea for a short story, and I played around with it, and it didn't really go anywhere. And then I read something about mermaids' tears, and it was that beachcombers call, the little nurdles of plastic that you find when plastic breaks right down. They call them mermaids' tears, and that stuck with me. And I just imagined this mermaid crying plastic tears. And it was just such a powerful image for me because, mermaids are this pure magical creature, kind of almost like a unicorn. And that was where this story was born, with this image of a mermaid crying plastic tears. And that is what happens in the story. The big opening of the story is Sukara, the girl character, walking on the beach and seeing this mermaid just bawling because she suddenly realised that her tears have become plastic.
So what age is it targeted at?
It works on different levels with different age kids. The younger kids get really caught up about the mermaid and want to know if mermaids are real. And sometimes they, because in the story the tears can melt plastic, people's tears melt plastic. That's kind of the thrust of the magic of the story of how they're able to heal the ocean, is that people's tears can melt plastic. So I've had younger children try crying onto a plastic bag to make it go away, and so they really believe it, which I think is really cute. But yeah, I think it works for all kids, and older kids really appreciate the metaphor of the story and appreciate the sentiment behind the story as well.
And some of the material that I saw, like your promotional material, I guess maybe a website, you mentioned it's about plastic pollution in the ocean, mm-hmm. with a happy ending. Mm-hmm. Now, why did you feel you needed to tell everyone that it has a happy ending?
Because I just feel like environmental news is bad news a lot of the time. Like, I wanted people to believe that you can have a happy ending. I want to believe that we can have a happy ending with what's going on.
And
it's so frustrating.
That was my next question. Are we going to, in real life, are we going to have a happy ending when it comes to the environment?
I don't know. I mean, I walk around in the grocery store and see people buying huge crates of plastic water bottles still. No. And I'm like, why? Why are we still doing this? Why don't we know enough that we're not doing this? That we still think this is okay? I don't know. I mean, I follow some really positive people who are doing some amazing things. There's been in the news about this new type of fungi that can eat plastic, but we haven't turned the tap off. Like the last 15 years has been more plastic than ever before. I mean, we are still pouring plastic into our world. So I don't know about the happy ending. I hope there's a happy ending, but writing this book helps me with my hope.
It's therapy for you.
For you. Yeah, it gives me hope. And whenever I read this book, I feel like I'm just making a tiny, tiny little bit of a difference by maybe some of the children that I read to will go home and tell their mum to stop buying those plastic water bottles in the supermarket, and the mum will say, "Oh, okay, yeah, I guess we could do that." Yeah, but these are small changes. I mean, it does have to come from above. It has to come from governments. It has to come from regulations. But it's also has to come from the consumer. I mean, every time we buy something, we're making a choice. And the more educated we are, the better the choices are that we're going to make. If everybody boycotted Nestle water bottles, they would stop making them. They're only making them because we are buying them. So it's a very complicated issue, and I was trying to simplify it in my book. And, I think I've kind of made it digestible for younger people. I mean, I actually did a lot of research for this book. I read a lot of books about plastic and the people that discovered the plastic ocean. I looked into all the different issues. I mean, I felt like it's interesting because it's a simple, short story, but at the same time, you can do so much research about this subject. But I mean, that was quite a long time ago, and it's only got worse since then.
So how hard? Yeah. So you've self-published this, and that's more and more popular these days because you got to do what you got to do. But are there advantages to self-publishing? What are the, I guess, disadvantages to self-publishing?
Well, a huge advantage is time. It can take 3 years to make a picture book through a big publishing company, and they pre-order it from China months in advance, and they get huge discounts because of how they order and pay for the publishing. So you can turn something around pretty quickly. You have complete control over everything, which
if you do it in North America,
if you do it, if you self-publish. The way that I did it is I started a Kickstarter campaign to raise enough money to pay for an illustrator in the first run of the book.
So you said, here's the story, and do you like my story? I'm going to I'd like to hire an illustrator. So people really had to get hooked on your words first then.
Yeah, and it was really enjoyable. It succeeded, the campaign. And I had people who I had no idea who they were. And I did have friends and family back me on the Kickstarter campaign. Everybody who backed me got a free copy of the book, either hardback or softcover, depending on how much money you put into the campaign.
So this allowed you to hire and pay an illustrator, basically. So it's not a friend. This person wasn't a friend ahead of time.
No.
It's Tamara Piper.
Yeah. So Tamara lives in Belgrade.
Really?
And I've never met her.
So this was an internet collaboration.
Yeah, we worked through Fiverr, which is a freelance website that connects you with people.
Wow.
So I sent her the story, and she sent me, first of all, she sent me a picture of Sukara. And then I kind of sent her back some suggestions.
Some notes.
And then I sent her, then she started working on the whole story. And I absolutely loved this process. It was like Christmas every day that I'd open up these pictures. I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. And
so your story's coming to life.
It was, and I just think there's something about the way she draws people, and especially with the cover, the way these two characters are connecting with each other. I really, really enjoyed the process of working with her. I would love to meet her one day. Maybe work with her again.
So any projects in the pipeline? Any stories that you're
I'm
nothing
thinking,
you can talk about, I guess.
No, I'm thinking of tackling the rainforest. There might be some orangutans involved because I really love orangutans. That's something that is possibly in the pipeline. When I do readings at schools, I often get really good suggestions from the kids, and we talk about possible story ideas, and I love that because I'm kind of encouraging them as well to write. I was like, well, that's a good idea. Why don't you try that one? And write the story, and you can send it to me, and so it's really fun.
So when you're in front of your students and you can actually show them a book, does that impress them and motivate them even? Like, here's what I've done, you can do it too. I was once like you, and you can.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, a big theme of the book as well is about having a voice, because Sukara in the story, her voice is loud enough to turn the whole world to have this big day where they all cry for the ocean. I mean, it's her voice that does that, her story that does that, and I think that empowers kids, because they think, oh well, if this person in the story can do it, anybody can do it.
Now, if someone's watching this and really, really wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can go to the website and there are contact details there.
This one. So it's bluejaypress.ca.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A Cry for the Ocean. Where can we buy the book if we wanted to?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
My favorite way to sell this book is to come into a school and talk to the kids, and they can buy the book from me directly in the school. That way Amazon doesn't take all my profit, which is quite nice. And it's also just so nice to have that connection with the kids. But it is available online. And I think it's with some other websites as well, and it's in a few bookstores around Toronto, and it's at the public library as well in Toronto.
Well, very nice to talk to you today, Charlotte, and best of luck with the book, and
Thank you.
And with your teacher, and with your teaching, and with your students as well.
Thank you.